This is History for Cocktail Parties with hack historians Thornton Kennedy and James Ottley.
Welcome back to History for Cocktail Parties. I'm Thornton Kennedy. I've been writing about Atlanta history for more than a decade now, and I'm glad that y'all are joining us today. I'm here with my co-host, James Ottley, noted attorney, author, written 2 books on history called History for Cocktail Parties.
Atlanta History for Cocktail Parties.
Oh, History for Cocktail Parties, Volume 1
and 2.
And Volume 2.
Right.
Another round.
There you go.
And today we're going to get into the Kennedy family, which is a great story and also a little troubling.
Indeed. And I really wanted to kind of dive into this family and specifically the complex and fascinating life of Joseph Kennedy. He was a successful businessman, political power broker, patriarch of one of America's most influential families. And when we focus on Joseph Kennedy, it's not just because of his role in shaping 20th century American politics and his controversial legacy, but also because if you understand him, I think you can also, or it gives you key insight, I would say, into the origins of the Kennedy dynasty and the forces that really shaped JFK and Bobby Kennedy and Teddy Kennedy.
Yeah.
Before we do that, I love to talk about our corporate sponsor, Play LLC, who we're really appreciative for.
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about Play LLC.
Absolutely. We have a great sponsor, and we're thrilled to have them. We're thrilled to partner with these guys. Business is serious, but who wants serious stodgy marketing? Check out our friends at Play, a full-service advertising agency. They're deep in the mix with AI and digital know-how, driving more people to your door. And whether it's IRL, in real life, or virtual, Play ensures the right people find you and buy what you're selling. See their many case studies at goplaydesign.com. That's goplaydesign.com, and start growing your business today. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate this partnership. Thank you so much to Play.
Right on. Good.
And now into the Kennedys, Joseph P. Kennedy.
The patriarch.
The patriarch. So that might be the title of this program.
That or the sins of the father.
And just as we're getting started here, I am drinking in honor of Boston a Samuel Adams Summer Ale.
Awesome. And I am drinking a single malt Scotch, which we'll get the reason for that we'll get into in a little bit.
Somerset Importers.
There you go.
This is how Joe makes everything Joe does makes money. And I think that's one of the underappreciated components of Joseph Kennedy is that he was an excellent businessman.
The Midas of his time.
Everything he did.
Absolutely.
In all of my research, I could not find a single instance where he took it on the chin. There were no bankruptcies. There was no embarrassing running away. Everything he sold at a massive, including Somerset.
Indeed. I mean, this is really, really stretching. I wasn't even going to include this, but in terms of talking about Camelot, which we'll get into maybe a little bit, but apparently the mythical location of this mythical place of Camelot was apparently the castle of one of the possibilities was the castle of Somerset.
Oh, wow.
I don't think there was any type of relation.
That's amazing.
But just kind of in the neat kind of weird
connectedness
stuff,
of the cosmos.
That's awesome. Stuff that I find interesting.
Only you would find that, James. Just want to point that out for our listeners.
Right on. Down the rabbit hole. Well, hey, let's dive in.
Right.
All right. So we always like to start at the beginning, and with this beginning, I think it's important to talk about Joe's grandparents. Joseph Kennedy often kind of made it sound like he came into this country on a raft, he was downtrodden and a refugee, if you will. But that wasn't the case. A lot of things that Joe Kennedy said.
James and I were talking about this right before we came on air because we were sort of contradicting stories, or I was contradicting James. And the reality is that a lot of what we know about Joe Kennedy said himself. He was very much his own publicist. He was his publicist for his children. He created a story that is not backed up by historical facts.
Right. And so, yeah, he was a great self-promoter.
Absolutely.
And a lot, like you said, a lot of what we know or we think we know is based on news stories that he, pushed out there.
We'll talk about Profiles in Courage. We'll
Indeed.
talk about England Sleeps. There are just so many examples.
So, to start at the beginning, his grandparents, it was his grandparents, not even his parents, his grandparents immigrated from Ireland due to the potato blight, the Phytophthora infestans.
Wow.
1846.
Very impressive.
1846 to 1849, terrible period for Irish peasants. 1 million people died. Another million fled to the United States. His grandparents were one of the ones that were some of the ones that fled to the U.S. Landed on Ottley Island in 1849. PJ, Joseph's father, was born in 1858. And I don't think we know too much about his early childhood, but in his 20s, he opened a saloon.
Right.
And he used that as a launching pad for his political career. Again, this is Joseph's father.
It was said that a lot of the politics were discussed at the bar, and that as a tavern owner, as a saloon owner, he heard and was part of all of those conversations.
That completely makes sense. Right. And he was a member of the Massachusetts House of Representatives. He had strong backing, again, this was his father, from the liquor lobby.
Of course.
Worried about the temperance movement. He opened a second bar. And so when Joe Kennedy was born in 1888, his family was pretty established.
Yeah, they owned 3 bars, taverns, as it were.
Yeah.
They were invested in a couple of different things. So they were an upper middle class family.
That's right. And PJ actually got elected to the Massachusetts Senate. He then became the wire commissioner. He's responsible for electrifying Boston. And he also became an incorporator and a vice president of the Columbia Trust
Right.
Company.
That's going to come into play in a minute.
Indeed. And so, and he was a delegate to the Democratic National Convention. He helped nominate Grover Cleveland. So for Joe Kennedy, our subject, liquor and politics, it's kind of in his genes, And in addition to that, PJ.
I believe PJ also went to Harvard.
Did he really?
He went to Harvard Medical School for 1 year and dropped out. One of his brothers had died of tuberculosis, and his father was insistent that he become a doctor.
Interesting.
And so he too was at Harvard for not very long.
Yeah. Interesting.
Went to Harvard Medical School. It was Harvard College.
Harvard College. Indeed. So PJ was an old school politician. I say old school. I guess that would suggest that the new school is different. But our Joe recalled, being at the bar or even at the front steps of his house, and some of his father's cronies saying, "Pat, we voted for you 120 times today." And he was kind of known, the father was kind of known as a Robin Hood type. He handed out contracts as he electrified Boston as the wire commissioner. And so he was a man that, had a lot of influence. And again, when Joe was 10 years old, his father was the most powerful politician in Boston. He
tried to create a Tammany Hall. In fact, that was the model he created. He was less interested in being a politician and more interested in creating a political machine. Yeah. And especially the Irish Catholic.
Right.
That was really his movement.
And Joseph, our subject, picked that right up.
Oh, Lord knows. Yes.
So
he took it to 11.
Well done.
Thank you.
So, talking about Harvard, Joe Kennedy gets into Harvard, but most likely because some of the strings that he had pulled.
Well, you can back up there to the fact that he started dating John Fitzgerald's daughter, who would go on to become the mayor of Boston, while they were at the grade school.
Exactly.
And so Honey Fitz, as he was called, which would become his father-in-law, and did not like Joe Kennedy at all, had his daughter sent off to a boarding school in Prussia to keep her away from Joe Kennedy. Because
they worked together, though. Didn't they have to kind of work together politically?
Once he came back and it was clear that Joe was not going away, because Joe realized how important it would be to marry into that family. Oh, yeah. For him, this was strictly business. Right. And so once Honey Fitz realized that this boy was not going away, he, helped him get into Harvard, helped him pull a lot of strings for him.
Exactly. And I was going to mention that apparently so many strings and so many different times. that later in life on the golf course, as the story goes, that you could rattle Joe and break his concentration when he was teeing off by saying, "Hey, do you need Honey Fitz's help with this?" And that would like break his concentration and mess up his shot.
Yeah, it's remarkable that those two families, it was a merger.
Yeah. Well, and I think that may explain I don't know that we're going to get into a whole lot of detail about it, but I think that kind of explains why their marriage was kind of cold and distant.
Interesting.
And completely.
Yeah, I don't think we'll get. Yeah,
we're not going to get into it.
But there was definitely an agreement in place,
right,
more than walking in and pecking his wife on the cheek.
Exactly.
That didn't happen a whole lot,
right?
Especially with Gloria Swanson.
Well, and we can talk about that. So I think you mentioned a little bit. Honey Fitz is such an interesting character. He was also known as Little Napoleon. I heard that Honey Fitz was 5'7".
Yeah.
And that they called him, but maybe that was.
So he was a pixie-like character with a florid face, bright eyes, sandy hair, and he was a showman. I mean, he could have been in vaudeville. The reason he is Honey Fitz is because he will break into song while he is speaking. He is so good in front of a room. He's so comfortable. Everybody is just hanging on his every word. He is syrupy.
Syrupy, yeah. And his speeches, too.
In his speeches, yeah. He was affable, lover of people. This is one of my favorites, James.
Let's hear it.
He perfected the Irish switch, which was chatting amiably with one person while pumping another's hand and gazing fondly at a third.
Nice.
Or, in other words, he was a bullshit artist.
Right.
He was born in 1863, just a politician through and through. He served as the mayor of Boston. He was a member of the United States House of Representatives. He also made several unsuccessful runs for the United States Senate in 1916 and 1942. Ran for governor of Massachusetts in 1922 and was not successful. He was still a high-profile guy, but his political career just sort of came to a halt.
Was that maybe perhaps after he withdrew from his fourth try at the mayorship? Kind of neat or funny story there, or at least some funny names. Certainly wasn't funny to him at the time. But he was mayor of Boston, served 3 terms, and he would have served a 4th term, but for a certain relationship and being blackmailed.
Yes.
So Honey had been seeing a prostitute known as Toodles. I mean, these names, you can't this up. And so Congressman John Michael Curley in 1913 sent a letter to Honey Fitz's wife saying that he was going to expose this if Honey Fitz did not withdraw. And Honey Fitz did not withdraw right immediately. And when he didn't, this guy Curley announced to a university professor a series of speeches that he was going to give. And the speeches were entitled Great Lovers in History.
Oh, yeah.
From Cleopatra to Toodle. And then immediately after that, Honey Fitz decides, maybe I won't run for a 4th term.
But he was a very successful mayor. He built Fenway Park.
Did he really?
Throws out the inaugural first pitch in 1912. And another sort of, the history, the line of history, he was the first Irish American Catholic mayor of Boston. And his grandson would go on to be the first Irish Catholic president of the United States.
Very cool.
So there's some Texas. He made a lot of infrastructure projects, a lot of electrical projects. He really brought Boston into the.
And he appointed and then reappointed PJ to do that.
Yeah, that's right.
So anyway, so very cool. So I think we started with Joe. Joe gets into Harvard in part because of some strings being pulled by Honey Fitz.
And he had a couple disappointments at Harvard.
He did. Well, one of them.
Life was hard on young Joe.
It was.
Life was easy to that point. Let me be clear. He was a star athlete. He won the mayor's trophy, which Honey Fitz handed to him as the best athlete in Boston.
Which, again, this whole, we kind of get into this, but this idea of the Kennedys being great athletes, I read was a little bit of a myth. That, again, it was more self-promotion than actual truth. But in what his first, we're talking about kind of the first upset at Harvard, he got in, but as a freshman, he did not get accepted to the most prestigious clubs, like the Porcelain Club or the AD Club. They call them final clubs. But he did get into the Dickey Club, which was, pretty darn good club. But apparently he was always hurt by this, and he had a chip on his shoulder.
Yeah,
right?
and they thought it was an Irish Catholic
Discrimination. And so he's at Harvard. His grades are not great.
Not great, right? He was not a great student.
But they could have been worse if he hadn't been slipping bottles of scotch. His professors, his father provided it, and that's kind of started a trend.
I think that's where the bootlegging stuff comes from.
A brilliant move, you know. I mean, how better to make friends and
influence people than to bring.
Exactly. So he's slipping bottles of scotch. That later became cases of scotch to the people that he really needed to influence, and so when he's there, even though he's obviously comes from a good family, he's got a lot of money. He's always looking. He's an entrepreneur, consummate entrepreneur, always trying to look for a new way to make money. And I thought this was kind of interesting. One way that he made money was he partnered with a classmate to buy a sightseeing bus.
Wow.
They bought it for $600.
Just think about Boston and the sightseeing. Like today, 2025, you get on the sightseeing.
Right. He pioneered it, And he's got a megaphone. They bought this bus for $600.
That's excellent.
And apparently after 2 months of work, they made a profit of $5,000.
And that would start him constantly putting small amounts of money into stuff and getting ridiculous returns.
Well, and also kind of continuing the theme or starting a theme, they had so much success because they didn't have any competition. Honey Phipps, apparently, who was the mayor at the time, increased the fee for his competitor.
Sure.
It kind of drove the other guy out of business. And so they kind of had a monopoly on it, which didn't
That
hurt.
100% is a theme that continues to happen.
Right. So we also, you hit on his athletic prowess, or the Kennedy's athletic prowess. Kind of an interesting story about his baseball career.
Yeah, I mean, he was according to lore, he's the best baseball player in Boston, and yet he doesn't make
or Joseph Kennedy.
He does not make the Harvard baseball team.
He makes it the freshman year.
Oh, did he?
He made it the freshman year, but he did not make it sophomore or junior year.
That actually tells you more about his athletic prowess than anything else. He actually played.
He did play.
We have seen what you can do. We know.
You know good. But this was a problem for him because he needed a varsity letter. He had to have a varsity letter, but he couldn't get a varsity letter for you to play on these teams. So you want to talk about his deal with the team captain for the final game?
Tell the story about the final game first, and then I'll add my little addendum.
So the final game, he finds out that the team captain, this was his senior year, team captain wanted to open a movie theater after he graduated. And so Joe arranged for friends or his father or friends of his father to promise the team captain a license for a movie theater if he put Joe in the last game of the season against Yale. And this would qualify him for a varsity letter. So at the top of the ninth, score is 4-1. The last Yale batter, comes to the plate. He hits a fly ball, and Joe catches it. And this is, they win the game.
The end of the game.
And you'd think, like tradition would have Joe handing the ball to the team captain.
And the guy that gave him his varsity letter because he allowed him to play first base.
There you go. Right. Well, he didn't. He just put it in his pocket and walked away. And in the book I read about this, he said that's when you really started to see, Joe's thoughts on sports was it's not how you play the game. It's whether you win or lose.
I mean, it's just an incredible story of ego, of entitlement, to sit there and look at that guy in the eyes who had just done you the biggest favor in order to open a theater for his business interest, and you shove the ball in your pocket and walk away. And it did not go unnoticed.
Indeed. So he gets out of Harvard, graduates from Harvard.
And this is an important note on his ethos, if you will. He graduates from Harvard. He's a good businessman. As you alluded to, he had a successful business in college. He gets 0.0 offers. None of the banks in town he wants. He gets a degree in economics.
Is that, you think, possibly because of Irish
It's discrimination. He thinks it's discrimination.
Where that is true,
Probably, and he was completely shut out of the banking world and had a chip on his shoulder for the rest of his life as a result of being completely shut out. But he does get a job as a bank examiner, and so he spends his time just going through the books of banks and develops an unbelievable understanding of how finance works. And he already was very good at economics, but looking at those bank balance sheets, he gets it.
But almost more importantly, he gets an inside look at companies that are having trouble,
right? And
confidential information, about companies that are having trouble and like who might be ripe for takeover or different opportunities.
Yep. Absolutely, because the first big thing that happens in 1913, that bank you mentioned earlier, the Columbia Trust Company, starts to fail. It starts to go under, and Joe steps into the breach. This is the bank that his father helped organize, right. And it's about to go out of business. And Joe just graduated from college, brings together some folks, raises a little bit of money.
Not a little, $45,000.
$45,000.
Friends and family.
And they not only rescue the bank, they take it over. So they gain controlling interests in the bank. And as a result of that, he becomes, at 25 years old, the youngest bank president in the country, according to Joe.
According to Joe. And whether that's true or not, nobody knows.
But 25 years old to be a bank president. I did not have those opportunities when I was 25. Go ahead, Jim. Go ahead, James.
No. That because neither did I. However, it was a different age.
Yeah.
It was a different age. People were giving up.
And the funny story is that he never repaid the money. Yeah. So it ends up, he makes a ton of money off of this deal. This is his first real home run, and he doesn't repay the folks that lent him the money.
Exactly. Who were friends and family.
Right.
He didn't feel like he needed to. And it was also a home run for him, using the baseball analogy that we've used before, and that it was a great opportunity for him to go to the press and say, I'm the youngest president. Right. That make a big deal, self-promotion.
That is such a great note. This is the beginning of his PR machine.
And he is yes, exactly.
The fact that we know him as, at 25, the youngest bank president in the nation is because he said that.
Exactly. And so the Boston Herald, probably at his urging or his father's urging, wrote this great article, and I don't know, front page that, Joe is the youngest president. He's at the bank. He's working 14 to 16 hours a day. And, this glowing article about him. And it's kind of funny. It prompted a letter to the editor from an actual, bank clerk. I don't know if it was from his bank, but it said, if somebody has to work at the bank 14 to 16 hours a day, that either means they're stupid or they're dumb. Joe did not like that. Probably went off.
That person disappeared.
They are no longer with us. So we're moving on now to World War I.
Right.
And Joe did not fight in the war. He was not. He had a draft card.
I think that's very interesting because we'll get into this in a minute. But he really did not like fighting. He did not like wars. He thought they were stupid. He thought they were anti-capitalist.
He thought it was an economic catastrophe to get into a war. And I think that's great to mention, because when we talk about, when he is an ambassador,
right,
maybe that gives maybe a little bit more compassion or sympathy to him.
I think it does.
For his appeasement policies.
Yeah.
We'll get into that. We're jumping ahead.
But in 1970, he becomes the general manager of Bethlehem Steel's booming Four River shipyard,
which he had to get because his draft card apparently was class 1.
Really?
And that meant that he was subject to immediate call up. So he had to do something. And
I'm willing to bet someone else did something for him.
Well, I believe here again it was Honey Fitz that got him the job.
Shipyard, but it would certainly indicate
he did not know anything about. He's young. He didn't know anything about building ships or anything. So
he becomes.
I think that that Kessler's book saying that Honey Fitz got it for him. Probably so. Yeah, it wouldn't be the first time, right?
It's not going to be the last.
Right. And so he gets this, he appeals his classification. He's like, now I'm a patriotic shipbuilder.
Right.
Appeals his classification on the draft card, gets denied again. But then he goes to the executives of the shipyard and say, look, I really need y'all to weigh in on this. And I think it was that point with the executives, again, using people of influence to get him a leg up, maybe a chance that other people didn't get.
Absolutely.
That he wasn't, in
I would agree with
hole, on the Western Front.
Right. So he's sort of serving his country. He's serving his country as a shipbuilder. And by the way, he's selling these ships to the United States or to Britain, right?
Yeah. That's true. And it was, I think it bears noting that he never described, or he told his children and never described their service or his service when he was an ambassador, as being a politician. They were always in public service.
That's a good note. Right now, as he is in this shipyard phase, this is when he develops the friendship with FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, which will go on to pay. It'll be a problem and it'll be a source of a lot of success for him. So at this time, Franklin Delano Roosevelt famously is the Assistant Secretary of the Navy.
Right.
And so he is dealing with this young shipyard builder who's, building ships technically for Britain, but FDR very much is supporting Britain. And then I've got this great story if you're ready for it.
Let's hear it.
So the two of them have their first real loggerheads.
Argentinian.
Yes, over these two Argentinian battleships, which were completed but were not paid for. And Roosevelt wanted them for the British. And what the deal was is that he would just go ahead and ship these ships to the British and that payment would be coming in the future. Well, Joe Kennedy decided this was not going to happen. He needed payment up front before the ships were sent. He refused to send them. FDR sends Navy tugs into their yard pulls the ships away. And it is said that thus was he Kennedy's master once and for always. Because he stood up to Joe Kennedy and just said,
yeah. Well, it's funny because the way Joe Kennedy promoted, I remember that story. And the way Joe Kennedy reported was like, I stood up to FDR.
Oh, no. FDR.
No, but that's how Joe Kennedy reported.
The PR.
If that's any lesson, it's all how you spin it, right?
100%.
Yeah, indeed. And in fact, I think there's a little bit of a dispute in our research as to how he got his next job.
This is where we kind of contradicted each other. Was that the war's end? It's 1918. The shipyard business completely dries up. There's no one's buying ships any longer.
Or is he just not interested in doing it anymore because he doesn't have to?
So he tries to sell a steamship to a line chaired by Boston investment banker Galen Stone, and he doesn't sell Stone any ships. This is Joe's version, as we have discussed. But he did impress Stone, and Stone hires him at the prestigious investment house of Hayden Stone.
And maybe also Honey Fitz helped Joe get that job by offering to swing business to that firm.
Highly more likely. Already we've had 2 or 3 really sweet business deals for Joe Kennedy, right? But when he becomes an investment banker, he really starts leveraging his understanding of public, his understanding of PR. What he will do as an investment banker is he and his buddies will start buying stocks, and the stocks will go up, and the public will see the stocks going up.
They traded amongst themselves. And this was legal at the time. This was before 1934.
And so the public, James and Thornton see this stock going up, and so we're like, oh my God, we've got to get in on the ground floor. We throw our money in there. Once the stock gets to 20%, they pull all their money out.
Pump and dump.
Classic pump and dump scheme.
And he called it advertising the stock.
He has a famous quote about that, which is, it is easy to make money in this market. We better get in before they pass a law against it. Morally and ethically, what he was doing was wrong, but it was not illegal.
Indeed. And we're not going to get in. I mean, I don't have it. You might have some stuff on this. Like, it's crazy that he was actually appointed the chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission. And to his credit, I mean, the research I saw that was that he did not use that to his advantage.
This will happen. This will happen in
After FDR.
FDR's administration,
Right.
and he helps FDR get elected multiple times.
Which I wanted.
But what I'm going to say, I'm going to jump in here because I do have something relevant. Is that FDR is pushed on that exact point. How on earth did you name Joe Kennedy, who profited ridiculously off the stock market, as the head of the SEC? And he says, you lay a thief to catch a thief.
There you go. Yeah.
So FDR fully understood that he was putting a thief, a fox in the hen.
Other people said fox in the hen house.
Yeah, that's right. But that's not really where he makes most of his money. He actually, at this point, pivots out to Hollywood, and he goes 2,500 miles west. He starts seeing the money that's being made there, and he begins to acquire these theaters.
Indeed. And I do want to come back to his alleged bootlegging.
Oh yeah.
You want to talk about that now? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can go with the bootleg. I will go on the record as saying that the bootlegging stuff is not proven. It is a lot of gangsters in like 1970s.
So only sue me.
A lot of gangsters in the 1970s connected with Frank Sinatra. All these folks started telling all of these stories about how corrupt Joe Kennedy was.
Okay, well, Joe Kennedy, again, this is just I don't care one way or the other.
Yeah,
but
and his family's in the liquor business. His father had the salons. That was their business.
He did boast when he was an ambassador, which we'll get to. He was in London. He said, "Oh, I know all about the trade with the British. Been trading with the British on and off for about 20 years or so."
There you go.
So, but so
on the record, he admitted
it might have been an admission against interest.
Okay, so the bootleg.
Good. So the bootlegging. The story is, and I'm not saying it's true, but the story is that Joe ordered liquor from overseas distillers or distilleries.
During Prohibition.
During Prohibition, Volstead Act was 1919, I believe, and he saw this as a tremendous opportunity. He imported it. He would have it dumped at a so-called rum row, kind of a transshipment point, outside. I don't know if it's outside U.S. waters, but the police were paid to look the other way. From Kessler's book, he said that Charles Lucky Luciano and Al Capone were business associates. He also ran rum with a guy, Jacob Kaplan, who made rum down in Cuba, later bought Welch's grape juice, and that Joe made a lot of money off it.
He did.
So
apparently, allegedly,
he did, but he did, after Prohibition become the largest. We'll talk about this.
He became very wealthy in liquor. Right. And what I had read, which I thought was very interesting, and he said this multiple times, his whole drive towards earning money and making money was that he wanted to give each of his children $1 million. So his drive was really about his family. Yeah. And so the contradictory point is, why would Joe Kennedy take such a huge risk and get involved in this stuff when he really, and we haven't talked about this yet, he was a successful politician. He wanted to be the president of the United States. Right. At this point, he is not looking at his children.
Yeah.
Before he became the ambassador to Great Britain, he wanted to be in the Oval Office.
Right.
You're telling me that a guy who wants to be in the Oval Office is going to take a massive risk.
Well, you gotta have campaign funds, man.
And that gets back to why he wanted to give his children money. He wanted his children to go into politics. There's no doubt about that. That's where that Camelot thing comes from, is that he saw a vision of his children in public office and public service, and he knew that you had to have money in order to be in public office.
Right. Yeah.
It did not happen.
Brings power.
Your ideals didn't get you there.
Right.
You had to have the dollars.
Which, I don't want to get wax poetic here or, play down JFK or Bobby Kennedy, both of whom did great things. I guess it was yet to be seen what JFK could have done had he not been shut down. And Bobby Kennedy certainly was a force in the civil rights movement that wasn't there before. So they were great men. They were given the opportunity to do the things that they did and could have done by virtue of Joe Kennedy's actions.
Success.
Putting his success, he was a complex man. Were all of his feelings aboard? Maybe not, probably not. But It's kind of interesting to think would these guys have been, maybe they probably would not have been given the opportunity to do what they did. But they were given Bobby had never practiced law before.
No.
He had never argued.
Isn't it Joseph McCarthy that gives him like a shot in a job that he wasn't qualified for? He'd never tried a trial.
It was in the pool in Palm Springs
Right.
that Joseph Kennedy said, hey, you're president now. You should appoint
And
Bobby.
I think JFK actually says after Joe Kennedy's death, now it falls to me. Like he's almost like,
Yeah.
damn it.
Yeah. He told the reporters it's like I was drafted.
Right.
All right.
With that, James and I will wrap up episode 1. Next episode, we'll get into the allegations of bootlegging and a wild time in Hollywood, both of which will make Joe Kennedy Sr., already a wealthy man by any standard, even more so. Thank you for listening to History for Cocktail Parties with hack historians James Ottley and Thornton Kennedy. Please like and subscribe, and now that the episode's over, you can go pour yourself another round, and we'll catch you next time.